Story by James Drayton. The Hole in the Dark. When I was a kid, I grew up back and forth from England and Ireland due to having family in both countries. No matter which country I was living in at the time, one thing that never changed was being taken on some family trip to see a castle. In fact, I've seen so many castles during my childhood, I can't even count them all. Most of the castles I saw in England were with my grandparents, but by the time I was once again living in Ireland, these castle trips with them had been substituted for castle hunting with my dad, as he liked to call it. I didn't really like these castle hunting trips with my dad, mostly because the castles we went to were very small and unimpressive compared to the grand and well-preserved ones I saw in England. In fact, the castles we went to in Ireland weren't even castles. They were more like fortified houses from the 16th century. There are some terrific castles in Ireland, but the only problem with Irish castles like this is they're either privately owned or completely swarmed with tourists, so my dad much preferred to find the lesser-known ones in the country. Searching the web for one of these lesser-known castles, my dad would find one that was near the border between the provinces of Leinster and Munster. Although I can't remember which county or even province this castle was in, if I had to guess, it may have been somewhere in Tipperary. After an hour of driving to find this castle, we then came upon a small cow or sheep field in the middle of nowhere. The reason we stopped outside this field was because the castle we were looking for just happened to be inside it. Unlike the other castles we'd already seen, this one was definitely not a fortified house. The ruins were fairly tall, with 2 out of 4 remaining round towers. Clearly, no effort had been made to preserve this castle, as it was entirely covered in vegetation. But for a castle in Ireland, it was very much worth the trip. Entering the field to explore the castle, one of the first things I see is an entrance into a very dark room, or perhaps chamber. Although I was curious as to what was inside there, the entrance was extremely dark, so dark that all I could see was black. I've always been afraid of going into very dark places, but for some reason, despite how terrified the thought of entering this room was, I also felt a strong, unfamiliar urge to go through the darkness, as though something was trying to lure me in there. As curious as I was to enter this pitch-black entrance, I was also just as afraid. It was as though my determined curiosity and fear of the dark were equal to each other in this moment, where in the past my fear of the darkness was always much stronger. Torn between my curiosity to enter the darkness and fear of it, I eventually move on to explore the rest of the castle ruins, where I would again come upon another entrance. Unlike the first entrance, this one was not as dark, therefore I could see this entrance was in fact a tunnel of sorts, and just like the first, I again felt a strong urge to go inside. Swallowing my fear, which is a rare occurrence for me, I work up the courage to enter the tunnel, without my phone or a flashlight on hand. Before reaching where the light ended and the darkness began. With the darkness of this tunnel right in front of me now, I again felt an incredibly strong urge, where again it felt as though something was indeed trying to lure me in. But as strong as this lure and my own curiosity was, thankfully my fear of dark places won out, and so I exit the tunnel and go find my dad on the outside. Telling my dad about this tunnel I found, he then enters with his flashlight to look around. Although I was safely outside, I could see my dad waving his flashlight through the darkness. Rather than exploring further down the tunnel, which I expected him to do, my dad then comes out and back to me. When I asked him why he didn't explore further down the tunnel, he said right where the darkness of the tunnel begins, there is a deep hole with jagged rocks and bricks at the bottom. This revelation was quite jarring to me, because when I entered that tunnel only a few minutes ago, I was not only incredibly close to where this hole was, but I very almost let this lure bring me into the darkness, where I most certainly would have fallen into the hole. After exploring the castle ruins for a few more minutes, we then head back to the car to drive home. While driving back, I asked my dad if he explored the first entrance that I nearly went into. I should mention that my dad is ex-military and I've never really known him to be scared of anything. But when I asked him if he explored the dark room, to my surprise, he said he was too afraid to go in there, even with a flashlight. This is the same man who free climbs our roof just to paint the chimney. Like I have said already, I have explored many castles in the UK and Ireland, and despite many of them having dark, eerie rooms, this particular castle seemed to draw me in and petrify me in a way no castle has ever done before. It definitely felt as though something was trying to lure me into those dark entrances, and if that was the case, then it was intentionally trying to make me fall down the hole to my death. That's a question I've asked myself many times, but who knows, maybe it was absolutely nothing. Before I end things here, there is something I need to bring up. I tried to track down the name and location of this particular castle, searching different websites for the lesser known castles in Ireland. The castles I found didn't match this one in appearance. I even tried to use ChatGPT to find it, but none of the castles they suggested matched either. I did recently ask my dad about the name and location of this castle, but because it was some years ago, he unfortunately couldn't remember. So what do you guys think? Did something really try luring me into those ruins? And if so, was its intention to make me fall down the jagged hole? Or is this all just silly superstition on my part? That's easily what it could have been. If anyone thinks they know what castle in Ireland this was, that would be great. I think that your father also being scared, especially as you describe him as fearless otherwise, is concrete evidence, at least to me, that there was some presence, entity there, trying to lure you in. And I don't often say this, but I think in this case it was malevolent. If a spirit is bound to a location, which I'm assuming it's a spirit, it would know the intricacies and particulars of that place. If there's a giant hole with spiky, jagged rocks at the bottom, it knows what it's doing. I wonder even... Well, the dad didn't mention it, like there being other people, like bodies at the bottom of the pit, because if this tried to lure you, I'm guessing it would try to lure other people as well. Not a pleasant thought, not at all. And in fact, if you could find the place again, I would say, maybe go back and place a warning. This place is trapped by an evil spirit. Be advised, do not go in. Welcome, I'm Paul. This is Dave. Today I have 5 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. A couple that are quite long, but very good. My favorite one involves quite the shake. Let's get to it. Story by Select Accident, 4211. The Dead Quiet Orchard. This happened last summer. My boyfriend and I had recently started dating and were itching to go on our first summer getaway together. For context, we both live and met abroad, but are from the same country, and we usually return to our home country for holidays, summer being the longest stretch of time we tend to both be back for. Although we are from the same country, we live on opposite ends of it, about a 4-hour drive. My boyfriend was going through a very stressful period at work. His job is pretty flexible, with working from home, so he does that when he's back, but he was in charge of a project which was causing some issues for him. I wasn't in a better position myself, since I had recently lost my dad, important for later, and was drowning in legal paperwork. Long story short, we both needed a break and some time to just decompress. This happened during peak vacation season, and everything was crazy expensive. We were also on the verge of a breakdown and missing one another, so I said, frick it, why don't we go for a week to my summer house and just chill? We would still have our responsibilities, but at least we'd be together. He loved the idea. We set a date, and we're off. I have a summer house in a tiny, remote village in the south of the country. It's an agricultural community, so all you see are olives and orange trees for miles. It doesn't get too busy, and it's like a 20-minute drive from the sea. Perfect for 2 overstimulated late 20-year-olds to just exist in limbo for a couple of days. My house is also across the street from a playground. It's more like the center square of the village. There's an old school building in the middle. The playground on the left, an open space where they host the yearly village festival with music and food on the night. This was amazing for me when I was a kid. The house is on an incline, so the playground was visible from our balcony, which was great for our parents too. They could keep an eye on us kids while we burned off some energy, and when the festival came around, we had a direct view of all the festivities from the comfort of our own home. The square is also on a slight incline. behind and below is a small olive orchard, and an electrical building which just hosts the power for the lights around the square. This will become crucial information for later. So we packed our bags and went off. We both arrived fine and settled in for a week, one of ups and downs. The first night goes by without a hitch. On the second day, we work during the day and go for a swim in the afternoon. We come back after dinner, and it's nearing midnight. You can probably see where this is going. Also, for more context, my house is also neighboring my aunt's house. We are on shaky terms for reasons I won't go into here, and for many reasons we were being a little low-key when going outside, because I didn't want her to see me and my boyfriend. So, silly me, wanting to relive a bit of my childhood, away from prying eyes, suggest, why don't we go for a late night swing? There's no one around, what could possibly go wrong? Oh boy, here we go. We swing around, it's dead silent. I notice my aunt's porch light is on, which isn't odd, just meant we were probably being watched. Oh well, whatever, it wasn't like I could do much about it. We sat there chatting for a while, just enjoying the peace and quiet. There are some rustling noises coming from below, but we just assumed it was the breeze. Eventually we got a little bored and decided to go to the little kid slide, which was located further back and closer to the school building, and was at the time poorly lit. Before you start thinking something weird, this wasn't for any other reason than just wanting to go down a kiddie slide, okay? To give some perspective, the swings are diagonal to the school building and closer to the exit. The slide was one of those playhouses with a slide attached thing and just so happened to have a light facing it. It had just gone out. We are talking the distance from here to there. It's not a big playground. Anyway, we go there to get on the tiny structure. Everything is good. We started talking about nothing in particular. I'm facing towards the olive orchard and the electrical building, and my boyfriend is facing the house. I slightly turn my head and notice my aunt's porch light is now off. Great, I think. Some privacy. I turn facing the orchard again. Everything is normal for maybe 10 seconds before every hair on my body is standing on edge. There's this debilitating pit in my stomach, and the most I need to get out of here or I'm going to die feeling like I've ever experienced. I have never felt this level of fear in my life. My boyfriend felt it too, as we exchanged a look of knowing. We kept talking to fill the silence, but something was definitely very, very wrong. Whatever or whoever it was, the threat wasn't coming in the direction of my house, but from the side of the orchard, the back of the school, and the electrical building. Especially the electrical building, which was behind the school, down a few steps. It was fully lit, unlike the slide, but I was still getting the worst vibe from there. It was also the first time whatever it was would have a clear view of us. The swings were obstructed by the slide structure, but on the slide structure, we would stand out if anything was there, like sore thumbs. I don't know where we found the composure to not run. We got off the structure, me first, then my boyfriend, and started walking back home. We both physically refused to go down that was in the direction of the orchard, and literally went down the slide which was facing the exit. The entire time, I was looking at the school building windows, convinced that at any moment I would see eyes staring back at me on the other side, as the energy had now shifted to the side of the school building. I never stopped looking over my shoulder until we reached the steps leading us out of the playground and onto the street. By that point, my house was closer. I should have felt relieved. If it was an animal, we could always run to my boyfriend's car, which was parked outside my house gate. But I still felt this urge to run as fast as I could inside the house. We managed to make it home in one piece, and that's when we both let the panic surface. Both of us had felt that gut feeling at the same time. It wasn't like there had been a visible threat in sight. In the time I was facing that direction, I hadn't seen anyone. I hadn't heard a single thing. I just knew that something or someone was somewhere, and their intentions were anything but pure. And I had a strong feeling it wasn't an animal, but a person, specifically a man. The brain is weird in that way. It fills in the blanks in ways I can't understand, and to me, a man was more pleasurable of an image than an animal stalking us, or something even supernatural. That's when my boyfriend pointed out that there had been no sounds at all. It had been dead silent. Not even the rustling he had pointed out earlier when we had been swinging from the gentle breeze. We just knew we had to leave now or something really bad was going to happen. My true crime brain also found it extremely weird how quickly, after I saw my aunt's light turn off, I felt in danger. As if someone knew that there was no one who could save me watching me anymore. That could be the paranoia talking, but it all didn't and still doesn't sit right with me. We decided to put it in the back of our minds for the sake of sleep, but it's fair to say we were both pretty shaken. I wish I could tell you how it ends here, but there's a bit more left. To preface, I've never felt unsafe there before. Not when I was a kid, or when I would visit briefly with my dad. But my uncle had made a strange comment to me on the phone earlier that day, something along the lines of, "Aren't you scared there, all alone?" To which I mentioned I'm not alone and not to worry, and no inklings of potential danger. I just thought of a typical thing for an uncle to say to his niece, since he didn't know I was there with company. The next morning, we were both visibly still a little shaken, but after talking it over and chucking it up to maybe just being nerves, we went on with our day. Working from home has made us cooped up, so for dinner we went out. We couldn't have gone longer than 3 hours. Then we got home. Everything was fine and dandy. My boyfriend parked the car on the incline of my driveway, and I went ahead to open the garage door. For context, my house has a fence outside. On the left, we have a garage gate. It's an open garage, where I was parking my car, and on the right is what could be considered a main entrance, which has rusted closed for many years. We were using my garage gate as our main entrance, something we always did anyway. The driveway is also on an incline, and underneath that incline is a drain. We don't have a view of that part until I literally walk up to it, since it's elevated to make up for the high difference between the road and the house. When I'm almost at the gate, I stop dead in my tracks and yelp. There, lying motionless on the drain, is a cat. At first I thought I was sleeping, but then when it didn't move, I yelled. I noticed it looked raw. There was no blood anywhere to indicate an impact, no trail. It was as if someone had picked it up and placed it there. I've never seen a dead animal before in my life, so immediately I'm on edge. My boyfriend runs over, not knowing what's happened, and his face hardens. He goes into protective boyfriend mode, makes sure to shield me from getting closer to it, opens the gate, and tells me to go upstairs. He follows behind me soon after, and we go inside. Unlike me, my boyfriend spent all his summers in the countryside. He'd seen roadkills and could distinguish one from another. He told me that after we got in, that it looked staged, and the cat looked to have died hours before we stumbled upon it. He wanted to ensure we were safe before saying anything, because he couldn't tell when it could have been placed from the time we left to now, and if whoever might have done it was still around. Obviously, we have no way of proving that. I don't know much about cats, but I've heard it's when they are nearing death, they go somewhere and hide. So this felt out of place. And given what had happened the night before, it all felt too much to be a coincidence. Nothing else weird happened the rest of the time we were there. We actually went back with my boyfriend again for another week after this, and had an amazing time. I've been back since with my mom to run errands. Nothing happened then too. I always look at the playground now with new eyes though, searching for anything amiss, but I've never gotten that feeling again. I can only reason with these 3 possibilities. 1, we caught the eye of some deranged weirdo who either wanted to scare us or hurt us for craps and giggles. 2, it was an animal that was hungry and saw an easy target. Or 3, someone or something was consciously trying to intimidate my family through me to, I guess, scare us and make us feel unwelcome. But logic aside, it still makes no sense to me a while later. I'd appreciate any thoughts on what it could have been, if anything at all. I don't know who or what was there that night, but whatever it was, I never want to cross paths with it again. Story by Scary Income 3248. A seismic déjà vu. So this happened maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I woke up and, as usual, made my coffee and tea for my boyfriend, who was coming to visit. Suddenly, I felt an earthquake, which was nothing big. It may have been a little shake. Suddenly, my boyfriend calls me and says he isn't coming after all because he has to work. I shrug it off and drink my coffee. I look at the clock and it says it's 10:34 a.m. This seemed weird because I woke up at 9:30, but I shrugged it off as, meh, time runs when you're having fun. I drank my coffee and doom scrolled for a bit when suddenly the earthquake came back about 30 minutes later, but now in a different direction. I called my mom at what should have been 11 a.m. sharp, and she said she didn't feel anything. Then I heard a knock at the door, I opened it, and it was my boyfriend. My phone alarm went off. Wait. It was 10:34 again, and the quake repeated. This time both of us felt it. We talked about it constantly, but I still have questions. Did I talk to a stranger? Did all 3 quakes happen? Time reset? Am I going crazy? And why am I the only one who remembers all 3? There's just so many things going on in this story, even though it's very short. There's too many anomalies that coalesce together to make any sense. You're trapped in some kind of time distortion effect, where your perception of reality was completely warped. I don't think reality itself was warped. I think it's all the perception of it happening in your brain. Why would this happen, though? Was it an issue with the server itself, feeding you inputs? Because again, I'm always going to think, or I'm probably always going to think that we live in a simulation. And if that's the case, then there are processes going on to, process reality, and that input is fed into your brain in the real world. But you could also just think it's fed into the brain in this world. Maybe it has to be both. And when it's incorrectly fed into your brain in the simulation, you get these weird anomalies and glitches in terms of time perception and structure of what happened. Like you were ahead in time, but that isn't supposed to happen yet. It's like in a shooter game where you have a zigzagging effect when you lag. You see your character do something, but then it's pulled back because the lag, the server update says, no, you're not supposed to be there yet. Which makes you wonder, how far ahead can reality be buffered? I don't think it's all buffered, like we're just playing out a video or something. But apparently it can be buffered like at least 30 minutes in this case. Crazy. Story by 448 Purse. The White Blur. This is so weird, and I feel insane even writing about it. A couple of years ago, my mother and I were chatting together in the kitchen one evening. We'd locked up the back door already, and the only lighting in the room would have been from the windows, as the sun was setting. We'd been talking about my deceased grandparents, which is most likely a coincidence, but just made the whole situation feel even creepier. She said something, and I remember pausing to think about it. Then out of nowhere, a white, human-sized thing flew right past us. An almost iridescent, impossibly bright and pure white thing appeared, and in the same moment traveled all the way to the other side of the room. I'd been dealing with schizophrenia at the time, so I didn't say anything, assuming it was another hallucination, though my usual hallucinations were nothing like that and were almost always darkened figures. But my mother must have seen my face twitch. She asked, "Did you see that too?" I remember just being filled with dread. I almost cried. It was so strange. We'd both seen the exact same impossible figure do the same movement, then completely disappear. We've never seen it again since, and even now when we talk about it, we both get freaked out and end up changing the topic. It seriously gives me chills just thinking about it. I can't explain what it could have been at all. My house has always felt a little haunted, but nothing at all like this has happened before or since. It just didn't feel ghost-like, for lack of a better term. It felt more like we'd seen something that wasn't supposed to be there. Story by Spark Alter. The Basement Update. Some context. About 5 to 6 months ago, my mom, grandmother, and I moved into a new house so our old place could be sold. The house is roughly 24 by 48, with a basement and a main floor about 6 feet up. The basement is slightly below ground level. Originally, my grandmother had the master bedroom. My mom had one of the upstairs bedrooms, and the other upstairs bedroom sat empty. When the realtor showed us the house, the basement had 3 finished rooms, my bedroom, a den, and an extra room we never ended up using, plus a bathroom. That basement was actually what sold us on the place, since it meant I'd have my own space downstairs instead of taking the empty upstairs bedroom. We lived there for months like that. Basement finished and in use, upstairs bedroom empty. Then about a week or 2 ago, my parents and I went on vacation to Toronto. When we got back, my room downstairs was gone. Just 4 gyprock walls, a few metal supports, and a concrete floor. That's all the basement is now. Now, my grandmother is in that upstairs bedroom that used to be empty, and I'm in the master. I know this isn't just us misremembering, because my posters and my stuff are up here in the master now. The same stuff that was in my room downstairs before we left. My grandmother seems confused about it too, but she's not questioning how she ended up in a different bedroom instead of the master. It's like the shift in living arrangements doesn't feel wrong to her, just my missing room does. We called the people who sold us the house. They said they never used the basement. The realtor told us we could build down there if we wanted, like it had always been empty. It's like we slipped into some alternate version of the house where the basement never existed. Except my grandmother and I can both sketch out exactly how it used to look, room for room. A few of my online friends even remember me mentioning the basement before. But my mom doesn't remember the basement at all. To her, it's always been empty. So now it's not even all 3 of us against the world on this. It's me and my gran against my own mom's memory of the place we all live in. I'm genuinely questioning my own sanity here. Also, sorry if this reads weird. It's really late for me right now, and I'm just so confused. Okay, so normally I would just say, oh, quantum immortality. You switch universes into one where the basement isn't finished or, decorated and furnished and all that good stuff that you want your man cave to be. But no, this case is split. Unless you came with your grandma, and your mom is, the new universe's mom, we suspect heavily that quantum immortality is related to dying. You die, your soul goes to a different universe. Cool, infinite lives, basically. Not against natural aging, but in terms of random events happening, accidents and so on. Yeah. Okay, cool, that's great. But often it seems like souls are able to link together. One soul dies and another one comes with them, but only if they die together? What if there are other reasons why someone would quantumly transport? Maybe guardian angels often try to save people within the same universe. They have to stay in that one, but maybe sometimes you just get kicked to a different server. Maybe some servers are overloaded and there have to be transfers made. So it's not always an involving death. Because I'm just thinking, why would both you and your grandma die at the same time in the same general area? I mean, there are very rare cases where like houses explode because of a gas leak or something. Crazy videos of that online if you want to search it up. But yeah, it seems very unlikely that something like that happened in your originating universe. So my guess is that neither of you died, and quantum immortality is probably more expansive than we give it credit for. Now time for the jokes of the day. My boss asked me, why am I sick only on weekdays? Because weekdays are not strong days. I just asked my 9-year-old son what he learned in school today. He said, apparently not enough. I have to go back tomorrow. My wife thinks it's weird that I stare at the window during a heavy rainstorm. It'd be a lot less weird if she'd just let me in. It's kind of fun to just be outside during a large storm. Something about it, the chaos of it, the intensity is very appealing. I just don't like getting soaking wet, but if you have a nice raincoat on, it's great. Standing on the porch, watching the clouds and the wind and the rain and the thunder. Good stuff. It's another hot day, so I've walked upstairs, taken all my clothes off, and opened every window. I feel so much better, although the other people on the double-decker bus don't like it. It kind of makes you wonder, what would society look like if we all just were all nudist? Have a loincloth or something just for sanitary reasons, but otherwise everyone's just naked? It certainly might help with the heat wave going on in Europe right now. I married my wife for her looks, but not the ones I've been getting lately. Scowls and stern looks. What are you doing, mate? Alright, more glitches up here. Check him out. See you next time.